Right, guys, welcome back to the channel, and we've got a special treat today. We have the winner of No Retreat 7, Mr. Lewis Elmes. Welcome to the channel, Lewis.
Hi, Harry, you alright?
Not bad, thank you. Lewis, winning
Yes.
No Retreat 7.
Madness, I know.
Absolute crazy. So we actually first met at No Retreat 5.
Yeah, kind of last year now, wasn't it? Last September.
It was last September. It's just actually popped up on me time hop on Facebook. I was flying home a year ago today, exactly.
Oh, excellent.
So there we go. So, No Retreat by SN Battle Reports, probably the highest standard tournament in the world.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the quality of the armies and the level of painting, I think, and conversions and things like that. I don't think there's anywhere else on Earth that does a tournament to that level.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And whilst the tournament itself may not be as competitive as things such as like the LVO and Adepticon and things like that, you've still got very, very good players. I mean, a lot of people that went there, Lawrence Baker, Winters went, but obviously Winters is a self-proclaimed non-tournament player, despite coming third. Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming, of course there was Liam from Deployment Zone as well. Lots of very well-known hobbyists make it into No Retreat.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course the venue is fantastic. The island is beautiful.
Yes, yeah, just off the tip of Spain, isn't it? And the Europa Retreat Centre where they host it is a full-on self-contained conference centre / hotel. So you stay in the retreat centre, just sort of in the rooms above the gaming halls. They have the gaming halls themselves. They have dining areas. They have chill-out spaces, and yeah, it's a full-on hobby retreat, if you use the words from the title.
Yeah.
And yeah, the guys at SN Battle Reports that run it go to great lengths to ensure that the whole weekend itself is an experience, not just a tournament. It's something that you go home from with a lot of memories, having met a lot of brilliant, like-minded people, and have had a thoroughly sort of well-rounded and enjoyable weekend. You usually fly up sort of a day or two before the tournament starts, do some practice games, meet the guys, get to know everyone. They put on big barbecues and restaurant trips and events and things, and people stay afterwards as well to have a few wind down games after the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and I'll definitely be applying next year. That's for sure. They are running the GT next year, of course, which I know a lot of people have applied for, and I believe it's sold out.
I think it has, yeah. I think they've got a different location for it because they've got a lot more players, haven't they? I think they've got is it 80 odd or 100, something like that, compared to the 40, 50 odd that go to No Retreat.
Yeah. You mentioned, of course, the hobby standards of the people in the armies that go, but the tables.
Oh, the boards.
They are,
yes.
like, I like to dress my table up for battle reports, right? But this is on another level.
Yeah, this is next level. This is a lot of the terrain is handmade. Some of it's bought in, obviously. Some of it's Games Workshop stuff. Some of it is Gamemat.eu stuff. But yeah, they go to great lengths to make sure every single board has a huge amount of line of sight blocking terrain on it, which I think is key in the current edition, to helping make a more sort of competitive or tactical experience. And it's painted to an excellent standard, all mats across the board, some fully modelled boards as well. Lots of different levels, heights, different types of terrain. Obviously, as a Tau player, I was a huge fan of the new Tau board they've got, which has got lots of weird-looking Tau buildings.
Yeah, fantastic. I saw that, and fantastic board. But not just that, the terrain matches the board that it goes on. So, for example, the terrain on that Tau table was dark grey with lots of blue. And the mat actually had I think it had cracked earth, but with blue glowing in it.
Yes, yeah, it was a blue-grey board. the mat underneath, as you say, is blue and grey as well, and it all matched in quite nice. So it was my first game of the tournament, actually. It was on that board, which was apparently completely random, but I appreciated it nonetheless.
How many tables? About 20 odd tables, I think. About 40 players.
21 in total, yeah.
And to have that many tables to that standard, like, you don't even get that at Warhammer World.
No, I think that's a feat of engineering of itself. How they even store all that stuff, I'm not sure.
I'll show you some pictures of under my gaming table. That's how you store it.
Yeah.
So, of course, you took this towel list last year to No Retreat when everybody was still running indexes. I think it was only Space Marines and Chaos Marines had the codexes at the time.
Yeah, I think we were all working off the indexes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was 2,000 points, but of course everything's dropped in points. So the current 1,750 is still about the 2,000 that we had last year.
Yeah, I think so. I think the list itself that I took did get a bit smaller, but broadly kept the same core and works the same way and operates in the same way that it did before. But just with some minor tweaks to drop the points to 1,750.
Yeah. By absolute fluke chance, you got into No Retreat 5, though, didn't you? And you didn't even have an army painted a couple of weeks before it.
No, yeah. So that's how, basically I think I found out in June, July time that I'd got in. It took till, I guess the tournament was end of September. So, 3 months had to get that painted in. That was a lot of white to paint without an airbrush. And I am buying an airbrush if I ever consider painting white again.
Absolutely. I mean, my tower airbrushed white, and you know what? It was an absolute godsend. Granted, it was my first army that I'd airbrushed. I decided on white because, let's go with the hardest colour. But
I have to say this army was the first army that I've really painted and actually can stand back at it and look at it and think, actually, I'm quite happy with the quality I've produced there. The armies I've done before have always been sort of quick, slap some paint on and get playing sort of armies.
Yeah.
So it was actually quite an achievement for me personally, at least, to get an army completed to a good enough standard that they would take me at No Retreat.
Excellent. Now, you've been running a very similar list since then. You got 4 wins at the Heat 1 GT out of 5 games.
That was in July this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then, of course, you went on to 5 out of 5 at No Retreat. But the best thing about this list, Lewis, everyone's crying in the towel group saying, "What's your list? What's your list?" And you tell people, and they're like, "What?
What?
What? Where's the riptides? Where's the broadsides?" There isn't any. So talk us through your list and why you've got what you've got in it. Because to look at it, people just think, it's a fun, fluffy list. And do you know what? I agree, it is. It's got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things. Actually, I think going back to something you just mentioned briefly before, I've been using this list now for just over 2 years, and I think a huge part of the reason it works is that I've been using this list so regularly. I use it all the time. I'm now very used to what it does, how it interacts with most different armies that you can come across, and what you can expect to get out of each individual unit. Now, I think the list itself is, as you say, quite balanced, but I think in today's meta that's quite a good thing. It doesn't do one thing particularly well. It does sort of everything at a half decent level, and so it can move forwards quite quickly. A lot of units with fly, quite high movement values. Obviously, using the Violar Sept trait that allows me to advance and still shoot without loss of ballistic skill on most types of weapons.
Which is fantastic for the breaches that you put in Devilfish. Now, you know what? I rate breaches.
They are my favourites.
Stephen, one of the guys who plays on the channel quite often plays Viola, and he swears by them. He absolutely loves them.
I think definitely. So I think usually they form quite the aggressive component. So I'm not one for forming a gun line in the slightest, really. Even the Storm Surge is always moving around. But the breaches combined with the Ghost Kill and the Commander and the Bomber In that Devilfish, the Devilfish can move 12 plus D6 on the first turn. Then on the second turn, the breaches can get out 3 inches, move 6 inches, advance, and still shoot. So the threat range they have on them is quite massive. And obviously with the Devilfish with fly, you can get yourself into some pretty key positions where the breach, I often find the breachers sniping off characters, anything that's been exposed that previously, because it was behind things, people thought was safe. Only to have the Devilfish fly over their units and obviously the following turn dump the breaches on top of something that was important.
And then on top, of course, on top of that, you suddenly, like, if you roll well enough on your advance, you're essentially getting your breaches out, 15 inches?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And then
15 inches.
You're going to be within that key 5-inch shooting range.
Yeah, so that's obviously their only downside, is that they have a 5-inch range on the profile of the weapon that you really want to use. So it takes a bit of positioning to get them where you need them to be. But broadly, they really excel at taking out things like Marines, just tactical Marines, Terminators, anything that's got a decent armour save, but not necessarily a Storm Shield invulnerable save, if you know what I mean. So looking at the 4-ups and the 5-ups, just because you can pile 20 shots into a unit, if you've got a couple of mark lights in there as well, if you're lucky enough to get 5 mark lights, they're hitting on 3s, re-rolling the 1s, so you're going to get a lot of hits.
And ignoring the cover, of course, as well.
Yes, yeah, and ignoring the bonuses to the cover, so you're effectively AP -3 to stuff that's in cover. You add in your stratagem, breach and clear, so if the unit's in cover, they get to re-roll to wound. And the Viola, one of the Viola stratagems, hot-blooded, that allows the unit to shoot twice. So you can really dump those breaches, 1-unit breaches, and for the cost of 1 or 2 command points, really boost their effectiveness to a level where they can actually make a real dent in a big section of the enemy's or your opponent's force.
Yeah.
Obviously, sending them in without any kind of support is tricky, because then they'll just die. So that's where the Ghost Kill, the Stealth Suits, and the Commander part of that list all come in there, because suddenly, okay, the breaches have just devastated a squad of tactical Marines, for example, but they've also got to think about the Stealth Suits opening up with the burst cannons and the Ghost Kill jumping all over the place, and the Commander just sniping off tanks and things like that. So the key thing, I think, the reason the list works is no one unit of mine is vital to the army.
Yeah.
They're all important. I mean, obviously, I don't want to lose anything, especially something like the Storm Surge, which is a big points investment. But if someone does take out a small section of the army, it doesn't necessarily affect the rest of the army doing what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the army, I was finding this weekend, was able to compensate for losses in the first turn. So I took it in No Retreat 7, I went second in all 5 games. So
wow.
It's not like I had first turn to do a serious amount of damage and then put me on the front foot right from the start. It was usually taking a round of shooting from Guardsman or Garkeldar or whatever, and having to react to that, and always losing something in the first turn that could argue is quite important.
That is pretty massive, because obviously as Tau, you do want the aggressive shooting. You want that first turn to slow your enemy down. Yeah,
definitely, or to at least take on key targets that can put out a lot of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that can get you from really long range. Anything such as those Leviathans with those 20-shot guns, things like that, that can really, if you leave them alone, they can really cause you some pain.
Yeah, definitely. Why the Storm Surge? Because unless people there was a period where people were running 3, and you know what, 3 was probably good, but why take 1 Storm Surge in the list? Why just the 1?
So I think he quite epitomises what I was saying earlier about the list being not necessarily excelling at one particular thing, but being just generally okay at everything. So it's got a few guns on there, like the cluster rockets and the smart missiles, and I take the air-bursting fragmentation projectors, all really good anti-infantry. And with volume of shots there, they're anti-anything infantry, really. So even things like your Wolfram with storm shields and stuff like that, they're running out with a 3-up invulnerable save. You're just putting so many shots into them that it doesn't really matter that they've got that such a good save, because you will just whittle them down.
Yeah.
You've got the destroyer missiles there, which you can't argue anything that does D3 mortal wounds when it hits something. That knocks out a good portion of something super heavy, some Magnus or something like that. It can really make a mess of that. I take the pulse blast cannon, which is the one that changes with range. As it gets closer, it gets arguably better, although I do like the 20-inch range gun, which against vehicles is just fantastic. Straight 4 damage is really good at 20-inch range.
Yeah.
I give the Storm Surge the velocity tracker, which I think is a 2-point upgrade. I don't think it's actually that much at all, but it gives a +1 to hit against anything with fly.
Yeah.
So you put him against anything from the Eldar codexes. He's brilliant.
And I think
Tracker is 10 points, but
especially with what you said there, a bit of everything. You're keeping him moving as well, but because you've got that +1 to hit, you can kind of afford to move. A lot of people would drop them down and then drop the anchors, but if you've got the +1 for the velocity tracker, as long as you pick your targets with him, the rest of your army can then pick up the stuff that he wouldn't necessarily get the +1 to hit. Yeah.
And I think he's quite good in that a couple of his guns, the smart missiles and the airburst and fragmentation projectors, don't need line of sight.
Yeah.
So that he's really quite good at sniping off those annoying scout units that are stopping you from shooting that character because they have to be closer but hidden behind a building.
Yeah.
Or stopping you from being charged by that one remaining model from a tactical squad unit that you can't actually see, but it's going to tie the Storm Surge up and stop him from overwatching something heavy. So it gives him a bit of flexibility there, and I think with the anchors, are really good. So especially if the enemy is coming to you, which something like the Dark Eldar guy I played. Obviously, Dark Eldar being so manoeuvrable and so fast are up in your face straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant the Storm Surge was able to go right. Well, I'm within 20 inches, so I'm in my optimal range. So I'm just going to sit here and just start blasting away. And anything that gets close to me dies. Because all the Dark Eldar flyers, they're brilliant models and they've got some fantastic rules, but get within 20 inches of a Storm Surge, he's hitting you on 2s, he's going to make a bit of a mess with that straight 4 damage if he can get through the old invulnerable saves, etc.
Definitely.
And obviously with a lot of the anti-infantry guns, they're strength 5s, they're not that bad at taking out light vehicles. Okay, probably wounding on 5s, but there's a lot of shots.
But you wounded infantry and even Space Marines on 3s.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, it's good in comparison to like Shuriken of Eldar, las guns, bolt rifles, things like that. You've got a better to wound roll.
Yeah, definitely. And I think all with at least AP -1 because of the advanced targeting system, you start reducing the save and things like the smart missiles that don't need line of sight and they ignore people's cover saves.
Yeah.
So you're effectively AP -2 with a lot of that stuff if you're shooting at stuff that's in cover. So I think he can do a lot of different things, and that's why I think he's useful. But again, it's not vital that he's still alive, because I think the investment that an enemy needs to take him down with his 4+ invulnerable save means that the rest of the army is escaping a turn pretty unscathed.
Yeah.
Because it takes quite a few las cannons to bring that thing down. If you can roll a couple of 4+ invulnerable saves, you really need to force your opponent to put a lot of firepower to bring him down. And admittedly, sometimes he does go down turn 1 and doesn't do anything at all, which is frustrating. But as I say, if that's meant that nothing else in my army's been shot, I can suddenly really quickly respond.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you're obviously quite a tactical player. You've looked at this army consistently, like you said, for about 2 years now. Yeah. And you've learned it well. And it means that you know when you can take risks. You know what your army can do. As opposed to somebody like myself, because I've got so many armies, I quite often forget about little sneaky things and stuff. Yes, I'm aware of other armies and stuff because I play as many, but because I'm not focusing on one army, I'm quite often forgetting little bits and pieces, like what you said there about the smart missile system, taking out that scout that's in cover, that's stopping your other guys shooting at that character.
Yeah.
That's, it's good game tactics, but knowing that you have that SMS to do that it is absolutely vital. So,
yeah, definitely. I think that comes with practice, doesn't it? I think for me personally, I don't necessarily have the money to buy the newest thing that comes out that happens to be really good.
Like 3 slam captains and a Castellan.
Yeah, exactly. So when the internet decides something else is amazing, I just don't have the time or the money to invest in that. So I'm not forced to play the Tau because I really love playing that list, but because that's all I've had the ability to use for 2 years, that's been what I've been practicing with, and I've hopefully at least got to the point where I've practiced enough with it that I know what I'm doing with it, and can take on arguably better lists and still compete.
Yeah, definitely.
But and it's playing games and getting the experience of playing against different people, different tactics. So like the final, I played against Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming at the weekend, and unfortunately for him, we played a practice game on Friday night where he absolutely took me apart. He had his Smash Captains and his Aggressors and his Leviathans, and they just tore me to pieces. But from that Friday night, that game, I kind of learned what he did with his army and how it worked, and could take that into the final, and was able to adapt in a way that he couldn't use the same tactics he used before to beat me. And that made for a much more interesting game where he didn't just steamroll me, and obviously eventually I managed to actually secure myself the win.
Yeah, I actually read some of your comments about the game against Mikey in the Tau Facebook group. You actually, from what you said in the comments there, you actually played the game very well. You charged your Devilfish into one of the Leviathans, just to stop it from shooting.
Yeah.
But you knew that the Devilfish had a good chance of getting in. It was quite probably the only thing that would tank getting in.
Yeah.
But by doing that, you were able to shut the Leviathans down, allowing your army to deal with the rest of his army, and then coming back to deal with the Leviathans.
Yeah. So that's the thing about those Leviathans. Those guns are absolutely incredible, and I knew there was no way I was going to be able to outshoot them. Not with them between them putting 40 shots, re-rolling to hit, re-rolling to wound because of Captain Angelo and all that stuff. They were just going to tear me to pieces, which is what he did on the Friday night. But I figured that the Devilfish being toughness 7 with 12 wounds, 12, 13 wounds, it could survive 2 heavy flamers and 20 shots from the cannons in Overwatch.
How many wounds did it have left?
To be fair, after the first Overwatch, it still had 10 wounds left, so it did all right.
Fair enough.
And obviously was able, because the 2 Leviathans are relatively close together, he was able to just charge one of them, staying out of base contact, and then pile in to that first one into base contact, but use the size of the Devilfish to swing round and catch the other Leviathan in combat as well. Now, because he invested all the points into the big guns for the Leviathans, between the 2 of them, they only had 4 attacks, strength 8, but only doing 1 damage each. So Devilfish was able to quite comfortably survive that combat, and that meant for turn 2, the Leviathans couldn't shoot again.
Yeah.
And it was just a case of trying to rinse and repeat that with the Devilfish and using the stealth suits and the ghost kill to charge those Leviathans over and over and over again. So, in fact, unfortunately for Mikey, after turn 1, none of those Leviathans fired again. I didn't kill them until turn 4. They just never fired again other than Overwatch. Eventually, I did bring the Devilfish down, but broadly, I used a 121 point Devilfish to shut down
700 points.
700 points of Leviathans.
Yeah.
Devilfish wasn't killing anything, but it meant that the rest of my army, as you say, was able to move around and get to the good positions it needed to, and to deal with the Smash Captains, to deal with the Aggressors, to deal with the Rapiers, with all the Scouts.
I mean, ultimately, that won you the game by shutting those down, and you played your army well in order to do that. You knew that you had the ability with most of the rest of your force to take out his army piece by piece, and then, of course, move on and deal with them. And you played the game, literally.
I think so. And I think that was very kind of you. But I think it's one thing I'd have noticed after this weekend, the one thing I don't think I'd considered before. Using Tau can actually be really good in close combat. Not because they're killing stuff, not because they're doing a lot of damage in close combat, but because you're using the close combat to facilitate better shooting phases in subsequent turns. Now, it was obviously used, as we discussed, against Mikey to stop those Leviathans, enable me to kill them, but it was also really useful against the first guy I played with his Imperial Guard, Death Corps of Krieg, Leman Russ, Bombard, Hellhound, spam list thing. I say spam list, it was a really nice list, but it meant that I could shut down the majority of his shooting with charging all of my units in and just releasing one tank at a time, using the commanders to blow it up, moving on to the next tank the next turn.
Yeah.
And I don't think I necessarily knew to do that before this weekend. I think that's one of the main things I've learned this weekend is that Tau in close combat, because we've got a lot of very fast, manoeuvrable and tough units. You think the Devilfish is toughness 7, so with a decent amount of wounds and a decent save. So in Overwatch, Devilfish isn't necessarily going to die that easily. So, and because it's so fast with a 12-inch move, it can relatively reliably get into a position where you only need to not roll a double 1 for your charge and you'll get in.
But not just that, the stealth team as well. Of course, you can infiltrate them. They've got movement 8. And then, of course, even if you do charge something, maybe like a Basilisk, I would probably, depending on the situation, I would maybe charge 3 stealth team at a Basilisk. If you make it in, you're tying it up and you're at -1 to be hit anyway. Even if you charge something that is more combat orientated than a tank, you're at -1 to hit them.
Yeah, definitely. And it comes back to what you were saying earlier about taking calculated risks or knowing when to take a risk. Because it's always a risk charging into combat against something that's got some really good shooting. Because if your opponent rolls a lot of 6s, your stealth team's dead.
Yeah.
But if your opponent doesn't, which they're actually more likely not to roll 6s, obviously, if they don't and you get in and you can silence 3 Basilisks or a couple of Hellhounds or whatever, you've not the damage, but the result of that charge is huge compared to the amount of damage you've just done.
Because essentially you've then protected your army for the next turn by shutting their shooting down.
Yeah, and you're also forcing your opponent to move stuff that he would not have otherwise have moved, or to change positions on things, or really, you're not trying to psych people out, but there's a psychological impact about having all your stuff suddenly charged and not be able to shoot, because if you're planning 1 or 2 turns ahead, you're like, right, okay, my Basilisk's going to shoot this unit, it's going to finish that off, and the next turn it'll start shooting something over there, and I can take that down, then I can move on to his other tower units. But if you suddenly throw, because not many people are expecting Tau to start charging into close combat, and I think you find yourself being charged, and you don't necessarily react in the correct way, or how, I don't know how the best way to react to that is, but you can throw opponents off their game quite easily by doing that, I think.
It's a very WTF moment, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, so after in my first game against the Krieg, there was, I think, Dan had positioned his Hellhounds in such a way where there was a perfect hammerhead-sized gap between 3 of them. And I was so fed up with the railgun just missing everything that I was like, fine, sod it. The hammerhead's charging in. So I charged 1 Hellhound and then piled into the other 2 and managed to lock all 3 of them up in close combat with one hammerhead.
Yeah.
Which, the hammerhead with the railgun is, bless it, it's not good.
And yet you still took it.
I still took it. Yeah.
You know what though? That once or twice that you do roll well for it, and it does brilliantly, is you want to make it worth it, but it's still not.
So I think, to be fair, the only time I actually hit with the railgun is in Overwatch. I think it only ever hits on 6s. That's the only time it ever hit anything.
Wow.
I just love it. I think the model is absolutely gorgeous. One of my favourite tanks in 40k. Just the way it looks, such a dynamic model with such an awesome gun.
Yeah.
Maybe the rules one day will catch up with how good the gun looks, but for now, it's resigned to charging headlong into tanks.
But you know what? It's like what I said. You've played the army enough to know what you're doing with it and what risks you can and can't take, what you can do with certain units and stuff. Yeah,
definitely.
So, obviously, off the back of No Retreat, a massive, massive shock. Even you were quite shocked yourself at being able to achieve what you did. What's next for your Tau forces? Which tournaments are you looking forward to going to? Are you going to any others?
Yeah, so my next one, I guess, would be the finals of the GT in Nottingham, which will be, I think it's beginning of March next year, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think we've got Heat 4 and Heat 5 to go, and then there'll be the whoever makes it through, all convening in March next year in Nottingham. So that's the next big one I've got planned. I think I will be using that Tower list or a version of it. I might drop the Hammerhead and get another commander in for a 3rd detachment.
Yeah.
No retreat only allows 2 detachments, so once you've got the Storm Surge and then your battalion, that's kind of it. So I think I would be tempted to drop the Hammerhead and put something else in. Although, to be honest, I was finding the Hammerhead was taking a lot of fire, so people were actually trying to kill it, which meant that they weren't really killing anything that was doing anything.
Yeah. It's the look at the big gun, and the look at the big gun and go, yeah, don't like you, I'm going to shoot at you.
Yeah, and if you play really aggressively with the Hammerhead, so it's charging forwards, they're like, whoa, I need to shoot that. What's it doing?
Yeah.
So I shouldn't rag on it too much. Poor thing, it's trying.
Well, listen, Lewis, thank you very, very much indeed for coming on the channel. I really do appreciate it. It's definitely been...
Not a problem, mate. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. It's definitely been insightful to the way that you play the Tau. It's very fresh, it's very fluffy, and it's very aggressive.
Yes, yeah, as I say, I've definitely. I used to be a Tyranid player and play full Tyranid swarm, so I think I've channeled my inner Hormagaunt into some of the Tower units. Devilfish is probably being piloted by someone from a Gene Stealer cult, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much once again. Thank you to everybody that has tuned in and listened. I hope you've enjoyed the pictures of Lewis's army, and of course I have shown you pictures of the armies we faced at No Retreat. If anyone is interested or wants any more information from Lewis, there's plenty of posts in the Tau Facebook group, which Lewis has been frantically replying to. So
it's been a bit of a notification fest, I tell you.
Definitely. Go and ask him a question on there if you want to know anything about his army. And
you can grab me on Instagram as well. If you like, I'm on Average Elmo Miniatures. So feel free to give me a follow on there, and I'll post all my Tau stuff and some Sigmar stuff on there as well.
Excellent. I will put a link to that in the description as well. So thank you.
Oh, that's very kind of you, sir.
Not a problem. So Lewis, thank you very much, and to everybody that has listened, thank you very much once again. Please check out the rest of the channel. Please check out Lewis on Instagram, and we'll see you next time.